Hello, you're back. That was a fast turnaround.
All right, so how's that?
Better. It fixed it.
Okay.
When all else fails.
And I didn't even hit the nuclear option of ending the entire meeting. I just left.
There you go. Look at that. I
Outstanding.
want to ask is S. Miller. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name because it just says S. Are you Dr. Crawford's student? Okay, because I had an S. Miller that had dropped, and I was like, wait a minute, maybe they didn't really drop. Okay, so you're someone else. Okay, that's just wanting to make sure. Okay, we were counting everyone.
Yes, they did.
Count.
All right, looks like we got 2 minutos. And Robin, what is up with the lack of communication between the provost or whatever have you, the registrar, and the clinical coaches?
I don't know.
I just saw an email from Dr. Stone, so I was like,
yes. Last night in the staff meeting, they were like, well, if anybody drops, you need to send it to us. So I just started shooting off all my emails. Dr. Stone's like, you can stop now. Well, I'm just sending you what I got, dude. That's all. All I can do is send you what I have. Don't know. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but anyway.
That's weird.
And I couldn't hear half of what was going on. You know, I have dinner with my family on Monday nights. And so the baby decided last night for the first time ever, she was going to crawl out of the crib and land on her head.
Nice.
Yes. So we just went ahead and took the crib off and turned it into a youth bed.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. You know, these are the things of life.
6:59.
And Allison, is Allison your middle name? Yes.
It is.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure I had the right person in mind. Okay. Hello. Just still trying to put faces and names and all that. So, yeah.
All right. I have. Oh, well, apparently I didn't stop recording. Well, I didn't stop when I came back in. So it is 7 o'clock. So we are going to go ahead and get rolling. So good evening, everyone. Guess what? You have survived your first full week. 1 week down and just a mere 14 to go. No, I promise. By the time you finish the AppSell, about 5 weeks from now, this is going to be old hat. Oh, excuse me, Miss Miller. 14. I apologize. I am not going to give anybody an extra anything that we don't need. I agree. So we'll by the time we finish the AppSell in about 5 weeks' time, the rest of the course is going to go by pretty quickly. So tonight we just want to cover a couple of things, and we've gotten some. And by the way, guys, if during the next couple of weeks when you're doing the Thursday night sessions, I know the whole purpose of those Thursday night coaching sessions is for Dr. Lamb to really try to go into some detail. But I think sometimes he may at times give you a bit too much detail.
Yeah.
And so, again, if you have questions, as Dr. Hamilton is going to tell you here in a second, please do not be afraid to reach out by email or text. I promise Dr. Hamilton's job is to get you through it. We were both pretty successful last term, and our job is to do that again this year, this term as well. Dr. Hamilton is going to give you kind of a brief overview for this evening, and then we're going to go over again what's due this coming Sunday, because since this coming Sunday will be your first submitted assignment, and then we'll look ahead to task 2. And so you'll find you get used to that as well. Not only will we talk about what's due coming up the current week, but we'll start giving you a preview as to what to look for in the week ahead. So, Dr. Hamilton, why don't you get us started, and then we'll get through this as quickly as possible.
Okay, I will. So we're going to talk a little about your app sale and what's going to be due. And then after we go through all that, Dr. Crawford is going to go over like actually where you put everything for your peer reviews and all that, so that you'll understand more about your Zoom teams, your peer reviews, where you submit your work and things of that nature. So first of all, I do want to say thank you again for choosing Gardner Webb for your educational needs and pursuits. And Dr. Crawford and I are certainly pleased that we get to work with you all. It's our pleasure. If you, again, have any questions, email. We do use your Gardner Webb email account. So if you have any questions about your Gardner Webb email account, let us know and we can help you with that as well. But that is how we will be contacting you. Because of some issues, and we're not really sure what all is going on with the school, not the School of Education, but just the school in general with the registrar, there's going to be a delay in your Clinical Coach 2 assignments. We had hoped to have our Clinical Coach 2 students by tonight, and we had also hoped that you would know who your Clinical Coach 2 is going to be. But we don't have that. So hopefully we'll have that by next week. And so we'll just, and that's fine. It doesn't put you behind at all. Also, if you have not heard from your Clinical Coach 1 by today, please let Dr. Crawford or me know, so that we can help you with that, because it is important that your Clinical Coach 1 come on and get your visit done with you. I just saw your chat, Stacy. Okay, thank you. That helps me a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, Dr. Crawford, if you'll pull up week 1 and the Zoom session links on week 2, so that we can see what we need to do. Remember that we do record these for you, and we will be sending these out tonight after the meeting.
Okay, give me a second when we get there.
Okay.
I need to go back because I had lost everything when I went back out. So
it's all right. So as Dr. Crawford pulls that up, we will not always go over all of the reading assignments that you have. So this week you had chapter 3 in this book called The Principal Creative Leaderships for Excellence in Schools. And so this was about decision making, and this chapter this week, it covers factors to consider when making decisions, when determining information that you need for decision making, how you select the right people for teams, consideration of options, and how the decision looks when it's being implemented. And this is really important as you try to think about creating your PLCs. Chapter 3 also discusses leadership qualities that are important for decision making, such as the leader assuming responsibility and the leader being actively present and engaged in the work. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So this is a great resource for you, and we will probably see these resources referenced in your work throughout this semester. So here's week 2, and it is pulled up, and nice. You will see that we'll be talking about your competencies. We'll be talking about your peer review, Zoom, Blackboard, discussion board. We're not going to talk about TaskStream tonight because you don't have your Clinical Coach 2 yet, and you can't get into TaskStream yet because they haven't put you in there yet. So we're not going to worry about any of that tonight. We just talked about UBA chapter 3 a little, and then there are 2 links right there about creativity and then also about becoming a 21st century administrator. So this coming Sunday night, anything in red under assignments is what will be due. So your task 1 draft is due in Blackboard's discussion board this coming Sunday night. And Dr. Crawford will go over that shortly. And again, if you haven't set up your Zoom account, you'll need to do that as well. So let's look back to the APSL template and materials. So when you're in your shell, you'll go over to APSL template and materials on the left.
I think I have that pulled up.
And just, again, be careful to make sure you're in the app cell, not in the app tail. I pulled it up last night when I was looking at something and I thought, what is this? This is not right. And I was in the app tool. It's just so easy. There's just a few letters difference and it's just so easy to get into the wrong thing. And so it doesn't, the chapter 3 is on there for this week to answer that question that I just saw pop up. It's on there for this week. And so you didn't have to have that read by tonight, but just read it sometime this week and that'll help you with your work about decision making. So if you'll go to that top one, the final evidence narrative. So when you go in there, this is going to be your template for your APSL. You can download that to your computer and you're going to type right in there and you're not going to change the format for this at all. So by the end of this program, you started in January, by December, you're going to have 6 evidence artifacts that's going to be completed over the course of your year-long program. And the APSL is the first of those 6. So the first component, did it come up? No, not yet.
Hang on.
Of this comprehensive school improvement plan, which is what the APSL is the PLC for student learning. So General Statute 115C 228 for the state of North Carolina requires as a duty of the principal to develop an instructional plan for learning and improving schools. And so this is a major part of you being a principal and you being a school leader. So this is not just an act in futility that you're doing to get through this program. This is actually something that you'll be doing as a school leader. So the first thing, again, you're going to put your name right there where it says your name here. So you're going to delete your name here and you're going to put your name there. And then if you'll scroll down just a little, Dr. Crawford, anything that is in yellow like that is you're going to put text right there when it has yellow. You have to do something everywhere where it is yellow. You have to write something where you'll see that yellow highlighted text. Now you're going to remove the yellow highlight. You're not going to leave that in there for your submission. And anytime you see red, that's a reminder of what you should be writing about. And then you're also going to remove the red text before you submit. Anything in black stays just like it is. So those color coding processes are the same through your whole APSL for you. So the first thing you're going to do is your school profile. So your school profile is going to tell about your school. It's like a 2 or 3 page story about your school. What does your school look like? What's the history of your school? You may be in an older historical school with a lot of rich history that you want to share about.
You could also include elements of the community if it's relevant. So if I were doing the school profile right now, there are 2 things that I would add. One, the fact that they are in the process of shuttering a local housing project from which about 1/3 of the students live. The second thing I would add in the school profile for Guilford County is the district's facilities plan, where the superintendent has put forth a $2 billion plan for the entire district. And I would add specifically what that means for my school, which is a complete tear down and rebuild.
So you tell about your school, your community, like Dr. Crawford said. What does your school look like on the inside? What does it look like on the outside? What does the student population look like? What are the values? What are the guiding principles of your school, of your community? What is important to your school and your community? It's like a mini history of your school. So then and then remember that if you use any kind of data that is just not common knowledge, let's say you use a free and reduced lunch data, then where did you get that from? So that needs to be cited. So anything, I mean, this is a paper, this is like a research paper. So anything that you do and you put in there that you have to find, you have to reference that citation, and it has to be cited. So just keeping that in mind, please, as you go through. We're going to give you a lot of feedback on your paper through each task. And we want to do that through each task so that when we're finished with each task in the ABSOL, it is ready to go for your final submission so that you don't have to go back and work on task 1 again at the very end, because you'll turn that into us. We'll tell you what to do with it. And then it goes to an anonymous grader. And so we don't want to have to go back after the whole big document is done and go back and try to make corrections or do whatever at the very end. So we're going to give you all the feedback we can to make it as perfect as possible from the get-go, so that you in the end have an easier time just getting through and moving on. Because it's hard when you have to go back, and we're going to overlook things. You're going to overlook things. I mean, this is just life. Everything is iterative. Everything can always change and be made better, but we're gonna do the best we can to help you have the very best quality work you can have, so that you do not have to go back at the very end, like in the middle of this semester when it's now time to work on your APTEL, and have to go back to task 1 of the ABSOL to do things to change. So task 1 of the ABSOL, and that the rough draft or the draft of this is due this coming Sunday night. And so you are going to be writing about these 3 things: your PLC research, your PLC selection, and your PLC meeting. And remember that this is about student learning and what's a problem. So the first part, we're going to read can you scroll up just a little about the instructions on the ABSOL task 1? Just scroll back up just a second if you don't mind. And there we go, instructions. So it's going to be in narrative form, and you're going to use APA guidelines, and you're going to describe the process of researching and developing the structure for a PLC. Your narrative will be supported by summarizing and citing sources used to validate decisions concerning the PLC format. Let's scroll back down. That's okay. There we go. Well, there you go. So you're going to include the process, insights into the process. You're going to justify your decisions. And you're going to just use basic technologies that are critical to establishing communication. So let's not forget that in prompt 1, you're going to get approval of your school leadership. So you need that email to your principal that says, can I have a PLC? They need to send back and say yes. And that's going to be in your appendix. And you're going to put that in your task 1, prompt 1 here, that you did get permission from your principal. So the first one is PLC research. The PLC research has to have at least 3 sources written in APA format. The research will conclude with a complete description of your PLC design. So you're going to have 3 resources at a minimum. One has to be to 4, where you're going to research what are PLCs, what do they look like, how are they organized? How are they designed? How do you choose the best people? What kind of leadership and decision-making strategies would you use in a PLC? So that's not going to have anything to do with your school. That's going to be all about the leadership. All about the research. And then once you have finished with that research, then you are going to make sure that you conclude that PLC research section with a description of how you're going to design your PLC for success. And then you're going to go and talk about who's going to be on your PLC. Why did you choose the people that you chose? What are their qualifications? How long have they worked at your school? Are they nationally board certified? Do they have master's degrees? What do they teach? Just any kind of thing that you would think of that made you choose them as a good contributing member of a PLC is what you would put right there. So as Dr. Lamb, I think, said to you all the other night, you want people, like 3 to 5 people, who's going to be on your team that's going to help you and your PLC in this process move forward. You want people you can depend on. You want people who are going to have positive attitudes. You want people who have positive mindsets. on improving student learning in your building. You want people who want to improve learning and teaching in your school. You don't want complainers. You don't want someone who's going to complain about what you've asked them to do. You don't want people who are just going to miss meetings all the time. So don't even ask them. So this is your opportunity to select good, strong professionals to be a part of your team. So choose those people with that positive mindset. And then in narrative form, you're going to say right there under PLC selection, this is who I picked, this is why I picked them, these are their qualifications. You're going to tell about what distinguishes these people to be good candidates for your PLC process. Now, you're not going to say Robin Hamilton, 8th grade math teacher. You can just say, use a pseudonym of some kind or something, candidate A, candidate B, whatever you want to put, because we don't really want to put people's names in here. And then once you've done that, you have your principal's permission. That's where you can put your principal's permission in there, or in your PLC design in the first one, you can put your principal's permission in there in the very first section. But then in the last one, you're going to actually have your meeting. So you're going to take these people, these positive, hardworking people who have said that they're here to help you and they're going to help you, and you're going to meet with them. So you're going to meet with them. You're going to say, this is what we're doing. You can tell them about what you've learned about PLCs and the research. You can talk about, we're going to meet every week. This is the time we're going to meet. These are our non-negotiables. I will tell y'all, just in all honesty, I had never, and I was a principal at another school for 6 years, and I've been at my school currently for 13 years. And I'd never just put up meeting norms. And I always had people checking papers and stuff in staff meetings and all that. And then after I started teaching this class and I went through all this, I was like, well, maybe I just need to put up meeting norms. I promise this year I just put up meeting norms in the staff meeting and said, this is just what it's going to be. And nobody's checking papers anymore. Everybody's paying attention. It's just like, okay, that's all I had to do all along was say, this is what our norms are. Wish I'd known that a long time ago. But it works, and so that's good. But then you have to follow those norms too. So you can't be checking email or be texting or whatever. As they say, texting is contagious, and it can be. So just put all those things right there in your meeting. These are our norms. This is what we're doing. Appoint somebody to take minute notes, meeting notes for you. Those can go in your appendices. Have somebody snap a picture every now and then. That can go in your appendices. This proves that you're doing what you say you're doing. Set those parameters, establish those guidelines. Just talk about that through the vein of your school improvement process. For every prompt and task you have, if applicable, and it is applicable to this, we're going to see this reference section. And the reference section, of course, goes at the end, and the very, very end would be your appendices, but a reference section goes at the end, and that has to be in the APA style. So for this one, we know for sure you're going to have at least 3 references from your PLC research. Remember, those references have to have that hanging indent, and back on the Garden Web Library for APA 7th edition, they do have that video for hanging indent. And then, of course, the very last thing at the very end of your paper will be your appendices. Your appendices is where you put all your stuff, your artifacts, your proof. So when you reached out to your administrator to say, hey, I'm forming this PLC, is this okay with you? And our PLC has decided that we're going to talk about proficiency on biology scores. Well, then the administrator is going to say, oh yeah, I think that's good, because right now, they're not very well and good, and nobody's really working on that. So that'd be a good thing. Another artifact you could have in your appendices under Prompt 1, Task 1 is your PLC meeting itself, again, with minute notes, who all attended your meeting, pictures from your meeting. You can say something, Dr. Crawford?
No, just saying picture.
Oh, yes, pictures, yes. And remember that this is a really important piece, too, is that what is decided and what happens, that the group is making the decision. You're not standing up there telling them we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but it is a group decision. I had a student once that had just sort of, and I didn't even realize it when I first read through it, that they were just sort of saying that this is what they were going to do. And then when it went to that anonymous evaluator, I got a phone call that said, well, did she just tell them what she was going to do, or the PLC really worked with her? So make sure that you're making it clear that you are working with your PLC and that it is that's group decision making. So you'll fill in your template here. You're not going to change this template. You're not going to add. You're not going to take away. So you're going to fill in your template. You're going to build your template as you go through your APSL. At the very end, go ahead and put your references and then your appendices. And then, of course, as you go through your whole APSL, you will have to go in and fill in your references and everything. The suggestion is a weekly PLC meeting. I see a question pop up there. The suggestion is weekly. So at the end of this APSL process, when you just follow this and go ahead and put all this together, then it all gets combined and it just sort of builds on each other. And then you have this to turn in as your first evidence artifact before we move on to your APTOL, because you are in this fast track program because you already have at least a master's degree. So your task 1, prompt 1, which is your PLC, your school profile, your PLC research, your PLC selection, and your PLC meeting, is due this Sunday night. Now, we always try to work a week ahead. So are there any questions? Let's just take a break right there. And Dr. Crawford, do you want to go ahead and go to back to the Blackboard shell for just a second so we can show them where that would go? So you're going to go down to APSL task for review, which is right under the template and materials. Task for review. And you're going to put APSL task 1, APSL task 1 for peer and instructor review. It's the second one down. APSL task 1 for peer and instructor review. And so that is where you're going to upload your APSL document. So what it will happen is your instructor will give you feedback on that. And we will give you feedback about things to change. And then when you make those changes, you can resubmit it and we change your grade. And then that's also where your peers will find in the discussion right there. Your peers will also find your uploaded APSL. And then they're going to complete before not before this Sunday, before a week from Sunday, which I guess will be Super Bowl Sunday, right? They'll complete 2 peer reviews. And when you do your 2 peer reviews, then you will upload that. Yes, the peer review process, Zoom Teams. Then you'll upload that into, there's the template that you will follow.
Guys, one thing about the peer review template, one of the things that I look for when I look at this is, are you doing simple things like good job, or are you really reading through the candidate's paper and giving them things to which they can respond? Did you notice misspellings? Did you notice clarity or lack thereof in their writing? Was there anything they did particularly well? Or are there things that you want to point out to them? And it breaks it down, you know, by section, everything from mechanics and grammar to APA formatting. So you're going to get a lot of practice with APA formatting. Not only will you be doing it, but you'll be looking at the formatting for your peers. And so what we look for when we're looking at the peer reviews are the level of specificity that you're giving to your classmate as you're doing this. You're going to be doing these weekly, not only with the tasks, but you'll be doing them with a couple of case studies and other projects as well. So get used to being able to give task-specific feedback when you're doing the template.
Yes, and another good thing to check for folks is to make sure that whatever is cited in their paper is referenced in the reference section. And to make sure that if something's referenced in the reference section, that it's cited in the paper. So just try to be a good proofreader for your peers, and hopefully they will be for you. And that's important to be just specific and descriptive, because as an administrator, you're going to have to give adults feedback, and that's not always easy to do. And so this gives you good practice with that as well. So once you get that template pulled up, Dr. Crawford,
Which one?
the peer review template.
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. So once you get your template completed, so you'll do that for 2 people. So if I uploaded my APSL task 1 and Dr. Crawford and Eric were on my Zoom team, then Dr. Crawford would do a peer review on my APSL and Eric would do a peer review on my APSL. And then those will be uploaded in the completed peer review Dropbox. And those are not due until Super Bowl Sunday, I guess. Am I thinking about that right?
I think so.
Yeah. 2 more weeks till Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So those won't be due until then, because the draft for task 1 is due this Sunday night, the 26th. So then once that draft is in, then that gives you that week to start giving your peers feedback for that. So your APSL task for review is where you'll put your task 1 for review, and you'll get feedback from your peers and from your instructor. And then once your instructor tells you to go ahead and put it in the APSL assignment Dropbox for task 1, then you'll go ahead and put that in there. It's sort of like in stages, so that you're getting feedback all along the way before you actually put it in the final evaluation Dropbox. So as you can see on Dr. Crawford's screen, you'll turn in.
Where's Dropbox? I'm finding it.
You're in AppTel. Yeah, go back up. Go back up.
Okay.
So go down. Okay, so right there, whoops, you'll have one more down, 2 more down. Your APSL task for review, that's for peers and your instructor. And you'll put it under APSL task 1 for peer and instructor review. And then the next thing underneath there, it sort of all goes in order down the side of the thing right here, to the left side of your shell. So then once you put it in there, task for review, then you're going to put your completed peer review Dropbox. Can you click on that one, the peer review? Because you're going to do 2 of your peers. So you'll see when that comes up and it says no items found. Peer review Dropbox. Well, what you're going to see when you get in there is a place for you to go in there, and it'll say, oh, here it goes. Good, 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 good. Yes, APSL task 1 for, no, can we go back down to the peer review Dropbox? APSL completed peer review Dropbox. Down, right there.
There we go. Okay.
Then you'll see right there. So you're going to do 2 different peers. So let's say that I did Dr. Crawford and Eric. So I'll do Dr. Crawford's like task 1 peer review, and then I'll do the second task 1 peer review. I would put in Eric's that I gave him feedback.
So one each.
Right. So if I did Dr. Crawford and Eric's peer review, then I get a grade for the feedback I gave Dr. Crawford and Eric. And then Eric and Dr. Crawford will see what I said and what kind of feedback I gave them. And I would want to go back in and work on my paper too, based on what my instructor said and based on what my peers said. Does that make sense? And then once you get, let's see. So we give peer reviews next week after the submission. Yes, the draft of task 1 is due on January 26th. And then your revisions, which will go into the final. Can you scroll back for just a second right there?
Hang on a second.
Yes,
Okay,
your
what now?
peer reviews are due on February 2nd. And your final of task 1 is due on February 2nd. That's correct. So you'll do after peer review materials, task and prompt, input and materials. There you go. Back up to APSL. Task review completed, peer reviewed. So task or review, that's this Sunday. That's what you turn in your draft in. And then on February 2nd will be the peer reviews. Yes, and just takes you to the discussion boards where it takes you. February 2nd will be the APSL completed peer review Dropbox and the APSL assignment Dropbox for task 1. That's correct.
So your peer reviews always be a week behind the actual assignment.
Yes, well, the draft, the peer reviews, and then the final assignment. So you're sort of working on 2 things at one time. One you sort of got in the works and you're finishing that up while you're starting the next one to help you get through that. Should we? Yes, if you have more than 2 or 3 people on your team, yes, please collaborate. Who's going to review whom, so that everybody gets 2 peer reviews, because they really are helpful to get those reviews from your peers, so that it's helping. I mean, it's a lot of reading and a lot of writing, and even Dr. Crawford and I are going to miss things that you're going to want done. So right now, your draft is due of task 1 on Sunday night, the 26th. On February 2nd, your final for task 1 will be due, and your 2 peer reviews will be due. Now, that might not be all. Let's just go back to this for just a second.
What you need?
Let's go back to, okay, well, let's just make sure that for task 1, let's just, yes, Marcy, that's what I'm thinking, and I don't have that pulled up in front of me right now. Let me go to Wikipedia just for myself. Yes, Marcy, yes. So on February 2nd, APSL task 1 revisions are due to your instructor. So you've gotten lots of feedback. You've turned that in on January 26th. Your instructors have given you feedback. Your peers have given you feedback. So the final APSL assignment Dropbox task 1 is due on February 2nd. You have your task 1 peer reviews, which you'll do 2 of those. That's due to the assignment Dropbox for peer reviews on February 2nd. And then your task 2 draft is due February 2nd. It just sort of overlaps and just rolls forward. That's just sort of the way it just goes, so that you're always like putting the final touches and revisions on one while you're doing the beginning work on the next one. So it just sort of is a rolling, you'll see how it just sort of comes together and works. And it works nicely because everything that you're doing is building on the next thing. So what you're doing for task 1 is building towards what you're doing for task 2. And some of you have already gotten that ball rolling and you've already been moving on task 1 and you're already in those things of task 2, but you don't realize you're in those things of task 2 and you're asking those questions and you're wanting to do those things. So you're already sort of rolling and going in that direction, but you don't really realize that you're doing that right now. So that's what is going to be happening. Okay, I was just thinking how we're going to do a final draft the same week. People are getting, Well, you turn in your final draft on Sunday, the 26th of January. So hopefully your peers are going to go ahead and start giving you feedback on Sunday night, Monday the 27th, Tuesday the 28th, somewhere along in there, so that does give you time before that February 2nd deadline to be able to give you feedback. And if your peers don't give you feedback until February 2nd, you can't wait on that. You're exactly right. So you'll just have to go with your instructor feedback and move on. But no, you're exactly right. So that's why we hope that as a peer, you're giving feedback as early on as possible so that they do have that week to be able to take your feedback and make adjustments.
Inevitably, there will be some of you eager beavers that want to work ahead, and you do not have to ask for permission to turn stuff in early. If you want to work ahead, again, we will work very hard to get everything turned around to you within 24, 48 hours. Most days we'll turn it around at night. So if you want to turn something in, Friday, that's fine.
Yes, I've already had some people turn in task 1.
Nice.
And so that's good. I mean, we're just working on it, just giving feedback and moving on and working on it. So that's good. I've already had somebody's already had their PLC meeting. So, I mean, that's why this rolling ahead is it's a good thing. So, that's task 1. I think we're doing good on task 1 now, according to the questions and everything. So can we go ahead and pull up task 2, since we're going to be doing our draft of task 2 on Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if Dr. Crawford and I are going to be able to give you feedback on Super Bowl Sunday, though. I just have to go ahead and throw that out there.
Yeah, I ain't going to try to lie.
I'm not either. We'll work on that on Monday. So back to the APSL template and materials.
Hang on, I got the wrong form. Sorry.
It's okay.
APSL.
I'm telling you, I was all up in APTEL the other night thinking, what is this? This is not right. Well, it's in APTEL. I always do that. The acronyms are just so close. It's just hard.
This one. Here we go. Task 2. Oh, prompt 2. Excuse me.
And don't forget that in your shell, there is it come up yet? I can't see it.
Hang on, I got you.
Okay. You also have that sample of an APSL, and you also have those APSL helpful hints that you can pull up as well. So that is helpful as well. So in task 2, you're going to research your data to determine the most pressing learning need. Now, I think every one of you have already decided what you think your learning need is. So see, this is what I mean. You're already working ahead. You don't even have to know what your pressing need is until task 2. So you've already worked ahead on that. So once you need data, though, as evidence to show, hey, this is a problem. Once you have that data collected, you've shared this with your PLC, and you want some way to show this to your PLC that this is a problem. You're going to lead your PLC in isolating the key data and creating or selecting visual graphics that effectively represent the need. It is required that the session is recorded. Now, that's what it says. Now, I'm not really sure most people have recorded and saved it so that the candidate may evidence leadership. I'm not sure that people have historically recorded that, but that's what that says. So you might record that session. In your electronic portfolio, make sure you don't have any student names or anything in there if you are recording, though, because we do want to keep that confidential. So it says in narrative form. So if it's in narrative form, that means you are writing something right there. You're going to describe the data collection and presentation process central to your PLC's effort to identify the most pressing need. Candidates are encouraged to describe the process from the perspective of a leader. Communication, delegate responsibilities. You're not going to do it all. The rationale behind collaborative decisions is vital in the demonstration of skills aligned with effective school leaders. Candidates will create a video clip of the meeting that will be used not only as evidence in the narrative, but evidence in the competencies as well. So I had someone that said, and their school is, I think, relatively like, it must have had like low performing scores anyway, but they had the biology, the English, and the algebra, and all 3 were relatively low. And she already had pulled up the data, so she already has all of her data sources. And she said that in the school, they already have people working on the English, and They already have people working on the English, and they already have people working on the algebra, but nobody's working on the biology. So she's already met with her PLC, and they've already decided that because no one's working on a strategy to help improve the biology, that's what they're going to go with. So that decision is there. They worked through the PLC, looking at all the data. Yes, all the scores are low, but these other things are going on. So that's how they decided that would be their most pressing need. Now, you also want your administrator, and I think I read somewhere else, your administrator does not have to be a part of your PLC, but your administrator needs to agree that your most pressing need is the most pressing need in that school and provide support for you in working towards bettering that problem and trying to help solve that problem. So you want a focus and a plan of action to eliminate that problem as a need. Put on your leadership hat. Think about things as a school leader. Be a forest person, not a tree person. This is about your school. It's not about you. It's not about your assignment. It's not about your classroom. It's about the entire school. It's bigger than just you. Sometimes that leader process can be a lonely place to be, and people may look at you a little differently sometimes when you're in that leader role, but that's okay. That's just the way it is. And so you're going to be the leader. You need to explain to them the why behind what you're doing. So as you move into this administrative role, you're going to start seeing things differently as you read the research, you read your articles in your chapters in your books. You're going to really start having a different lens. So just think about that. So task 2 has 2 prompts. So prompt 1 under task 2. So the prompt says you're going to describe and evidence. You're going to write about what you're doing. Your administration will be involved in that again. They should know what the most pressing need is. The principal and the SIT team probably have already identified pressing needs at the school. And always remember, all schools have more than one need, but you're only going to choose one. Your PLC can make suggestions, and you're going to need to sit with your principal and document this meeting with the principal. Here's some suggestions we can work on to help make our school better. I'm a part of your team. I want to help make our school better in this way. Choose a pressing need or a problem. You and your PLC need to choose this together that you are passionate about and that you really want to work on. If you choose something you're passionate about, it's going to make your work easier. It's going to make your work more enjoyable, and you'll probably all get better better outcome on it if you are working on something that you're interested in. So you and your team need to talk to your principal about student learning at your school and get your principal's buy-in on this. So prompt 1, you have 2 prompts in task 2. Prompt 1, the candidate will lead a collaborative meeting where data is analyzed and discussed, concluding with agreement in a specific need. Now this says videoing is optional. So again, you're not going to change the format. You're going to say data collection strategies. That's going to be your first title. And so then underneath that, what we should see is all the narrative work based on you and your committee about how you and your committee collected data, the strategies you have used for identifying your most pressing need at your school, whether it's EOG, EOCs, benchmark testing, EVOS data, anything that you can put on the table, present that to your team right there, what data is collected. And then the second thing is going to be the criteria and process. So your team looks at all this data, and how does this committee make the decision that this is your most pressing need? And then after that, you have your collaborative data analysis. That means it's a team decision. Collaborative means team. You are not making this decision on your own. This is the data that you are analyzing, and your team has determined that this is your need. And then the last thing you're going to write about under prompt 1 is, my team decided based on whatever, that this is our most pressing need. And so this has to be the consensus of your PLC and show how that consensus occurred. This is where you're going to move forward with trying to make a difference in student learning in your school based on what you and your PLC determined was your most pressing need. You make sure again to discuss with your administrator and put in this part that you discussed with your administrator and your administrator agrees that this is a pressing need. So for task 2, prompt 1, those are the 4 things that you're going to complete. And then task 2 does have a second prompt. Task 2 says that data is graphically represented in the narrative in the forms of charts, tables, and graphs. These visuals are used to be illustrated and support the data analysis and conclusion. So right there, this is data presentation. So it doesn't say a chart, a graph, or a table. It's plural, charts, graphs, and tables. So we're looking at multiple data sources. And so you're going to put those data sources in right there so that we see that data so that it's clear to anyone reading your Absol product that that is your most pressing need. So remember that we need to keep that in the APA format. You're going to show us data, and then you're going to write a brief narrative that represents the data that you have shown us in charts, graphs, and tables. In this section, you'll have a reference section as applicable. So if you do use any citations that you need to reference, you'll need to add that as well. And then also if you have any appendices there, you need to add that in as well. So that's your task 1 and task 2. And Dr. Crawford is driving for the rest of the night to help you with your Zoom, where to put everything, and any other questions you may have.
All right, so that was a lot. This last part will be nearly as intense, but are there any other questions about what's due this Sunday, what task 1 looks like, or what task 2 looks like? Outstanding. All right. Everyone by now should have been assigned to a Zoom team. Let me get back to the, and you'll find your Zoom teams over here where it says Zoom team. So again, these are Brianna says, hang on a second. There were questions posted previously that weren't addressed. Okay, if you didn't get one, resubmit it and we'll try to answer it. So again, these are your, sorry, go back. So this is where you find who is on your Zoom team. There is one of the assignments where one of the first things that you do is that you submit the just contact information so everyone knows how to get a hold of everybody. One of the things that will come up during the course is you will do, we'll do a couple of case studies and you will do a couple of reviews that you will record as a Zoom team. So make sure you go through the video to set up your Zoom account and also your YouTube account because I would suggest that everyone at some point over the course of the semester take a turn at actually leading and being responsible for recording the Zoom session, getting it rendered and then posted on YouTube, getting the link from YouTube and then sent out to everyone else. So like last week, Dr. Hamilton recorded our session. Today, I'm the one recording the session. So when we're done, I'll render it, get it posted to YouTube, and then that's the link that I will send out to everyone else this evening. Just like with the Absol and the AppTool, your Zoom submissions will go where they'll be in concert with the assignment. So for instance, when we get to the case study materials, when that time comes, you'll go to case studies and then they'll be submitted there. You'll also have your Dropbox for, let me see where they are, it's AppTool stuff. When we get this previews, case study, video library, APA format materials, that's where your peer reviews go. And then the assignment Dropbox, when you're done, will all go here. Again, well, these are all the drop boxes for the individual tasks. So when you're done, when task 1 is finally done, this is where you'll submit it. But don't submit anything there until we tell you to. We will give you a heads up on when your first, obviously, Zoom session is scheduled to go. But the big thing now is to, if you haven't already, go ahead and do the video. Go ahead and sign up for your YouTube account. I think all you need is, what is it, Google account, Dr. Hamilton, for the
Sorry, I
YouTube?
wasn't listening. I'm answering the questions on the.
For the YouTube, they need a Google account, correct?
For what?
For the YouTube video, they need a Google account, correct?
I don't think they have to have a Google account, just a YouTube account.
Right. So
The Zoom account
well, you can
will.
sign up through there with one of the big ones. But anyway, get both of those done, and then as we get closer to exactly when you do your first Zoom session, which will be with one of the case studies, that'll be a couple of weeks down the road. We'll walk you through that process as well. I don't want to overload you with too much in the way of stuff. If you were not assigned to a Zoom team, I know we would have some issues with late ads, late drops. I got an email a Sunday that I was able to take care of today, but make sure that you're on a Zoom team and make sure that you were able to get a hold of everybody on your Zoom team. If we can take care of that within the next couple of days, that'll be a big first step as we head through the rest of the course. All right. So are there any questions that we haven't answered yet? Oh, Marcy, you are very welcome. I try, because if I don't, I'll forget. So it's as much for me as it is for you. Any questions there about what's due this Sunday? Any questions about the sources from the school profile? Where do those citations go?
So the citations will go where you put it. So let's say if I said that my town had 87,000 residents, where did I find that information? It would go right after that. And then I would have the reference to that document in my reference section.
Again, just like the old, your old school master's days. Yes, under all your tasks, actually. Once you get your reference section going, and guys, just a quick story about the reference section. When I was finishing my dissertation, when I completed my the final reference section, I actually had to go back and remove references from my reference section because I didn't use them in the paper. All that daggone reading and note taking and highlighting, and I had to remove like 30 references from my own reference section in my dissertation because they weren't cited actually used in the paper. So it actually works both ways. You want to make sure that you cite everything that you do use, but also you don't want to just toss in stuff that you did not use. The word I use for that is fluff. And so don't get into the habit of putting fluff in your papers as well.
And I would say don't use quotation marks unless you're actually quoting someone. Because when we turn in your whole APSO to turn it in, anything that's in quotation marks, it's going to find, it's going to look, and it's going to search every single, I don't even know how it does it, but anything that's quoted that has a quotation mark, it's going to pull up anything that's quoted from that. And then if it's not cited in there, then that's a problem and you have to go back and fix it. So, and if you quote something, it'll pull that up if it's not in quotation marks. So make sure if you are quoting something directly from a paper that it's cited, because that Turnitin check catches it all. And but don't use quotation marks if you actually are not quoting something. You know, like sometimes we'll just say like, oh, something's called something or whatever, but just don't do that because that can cause a problem down the road.
Allison, that's a good question. Are there guidelines for our Zoom team meetings? I would treat it like you would a PLC. If you want to have norms for your Zoom team meetings when you get to that point, I think that's actually a good thing to do. You'll find once you get going, especially when you start looking at the case studies that we'll be using the Zoom teams for, you'll get a natural ebb and flow. The one thing I would just remind you of is that you are graduate students, and sometimes I know in education it's anathema to disagree with one another. But sometimes I think that disagreement is healthy, and so just work through those like you would any other professional disagreement. Um, and I think you'll be fine. But ultimately speaking, you'll come up with your own norms, and it'll just become fairly easy to address. Any other questions? One thing I did, because it came up a lot with the last semester, going back to direct quotations, you've, I guess, kind of forgotten how to do them. And so remember, there are two ways that you can do a direct quote in-text citation, both of which involve page numbers. Sometimes that gets missing. So you can either go with format A that says Hamilton 2020 quotation and then page number in parentheses at the end, or you can give the full quotation and then the full citation of author, year, page number at the end of the full quote. Either way, both direct quotations involve page numbers, and that was a bit of an issue last term. So I want to make sure I get you all started off on a good foot coming in with this one. And one more thing about this new APA 7th. Dr. Hamilton and I finished our dissertations under the guise of the word I, me, my, just it was beaten out of us pretty quickly. And so that's going to be a bit of an adjustment for us seeing first person in your papers. So give us a little grace while we work through some of this new APA 7th edition as we go through the rest of this term.
We probably won't even notice if it's, I mean.
As I mark up I on every other page, you're like, well, wait a minute. It says, like, ooh, yeah, right, you can do that.
Yes.
So, all right. So it is 7:59. Are there any other questions? All right. Remember, the link that you use to get into this evening's session will be the same link that we'll use every Tuesday night. And then for the Thursday night coaching session this week will be the same link that you used last week. So you don't have to go searching for those links. I'll probably send out a reminder anyway, just so you can go in, have it, log in, and be ready to go for this Thursday night's coaching session as well. But then those will also drop off once we get you guys going, and after that, it'll just be the really occasional, they want to talk to everybody for a few minutes session when the time comes up toward the end of the semester.
That's right. And also, I think this Thursday night at 6 o'clock is the first APA
Yes.
Zoom session as well. And we'll send out reminders with those links.
Okay. All right. If none of you good people have any questions, it is 8 o'clock. I'm going to be respectful of everyone's time. I hope you guys have a great evening, a good start to a second semester, third quarter for which will be tomorrow. And if you can join us Thursday, look forward to seeing you then. All right, Dr. Hamilton, always good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you all for choosing Gardner Webb and for letting us work with you. And we are here for you to support you through this. And
we'll see you guys Thursday night.
We'll see you Thursday. Have a great evening.
And I need to, let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, stop.